because this is how it works. So this is the puzzle that we have. 1 plus 4 is 5, 2 plus 5 is 12, 3 plus 6 is 21, and 8 plus 11 is the question. Now, with anything that I ever do, there will always be a point. So bear with me on this one. And this is how the point goes. So first number is 5, second number is 12, third number is 21, using this mathematics above here, which will give the fourth answer as 96 if we were to follow this particular methodology, okay? No one got 96, so we move to the second one, all right? Second one, 1 plus 4 is 5, 2 plus 5 equals 12, which is 2 plus 5 making 7, plus 5 again from the previous answer to make 12. The same methodology to use on the third point to get 21, and then we reach the 40 that other people had before. So the big question in all of this is which one is right? We have two different solutions to the question. The answer is that both work, and it's exactly the same point. It's a very loose point, don't worry, but it's a very loose point. But the same thing applies when you're looking at A-levels and foundation. In fact, it applies if you want a third solution, you put IB in there as well. It's about the end result being unique to you and your methodology as to how it is that you got there. You will always arrive at an answer that's right for you, but how you actually arrived at it is the personal part. So we've switched your brains on towards the idea. Both are right. Both are right with foundations and A-levels, but it depends on the end goal. It really does depend on the end goal as to what it is you want to achieve, as to whether foundations going to be right for you or whether A-levels are going to be right for you, okay? I've always liked to sort of compare this to the old six-pack promise that people have in the whole thing. How do you get abs? Some people will say it's just about the exercise and you have to go through this rigor, this routine, the same number of exercises, 20 crunches, 20 cross crunches, all of these sorts of things. That's how you get your abs. Other people will say, yes, but hang on, it's about the diet. You can't get abs unless you've got the diet. Why are we talking about all this? Because it, again, is a very loose point. But the point is, both are right in their own way, but you need something before. You can never go onto a foundation course unless you've had the foundation that goes with it. So when I'm using this sort of thing as an example, it's always about the exercise that you've done to a point, but it can't quite get you to the end goal. So that's where you throw in the actual diet part to get over that final line. And that's where foundation courses can often come into play as well. You need a foundation, you need something there before, even before you go onto a foundation course, okay? So let's break them down. Let's look at A-levels. Let's look at A-levels versus foundation. A-levels are the gold standard within the United Kingdom. Okay, they are the gold standard in the English education system, and technically they are our heavyweight champion. You take them standardly over the course of 2 years, from the age of about 15, 16 up to the age of 17, 18, 2 years worth of study. They can be taken over 1 year, but they are very self-selecting, and it really does depend on the age of the student. For example, you can't jump straight from being a GCSE student at the age of 15 and go straight onto a 1 year A-level course. That will not be right for anyone, okay? Because academically speaking, you are not ready for the challenge that the 1 year A-level program has for you there. You should never accelerate through your studies, and I really want people to really understand that. You should never accelerate through, because ultimately, at the end of the day, what does it really gain you? Yes, you get somewhere a little bit quicker, but technically only 9 months ahead. So it's better to actually put best foot forward and take your time. But A-levels allow you access to all the universities that there are in the United Kingdom. So you have a complete free rein as to what you might want to do. And you have more variety than you do in any other education system. You have 43, or in fact, now 44 different A-levels that you can choose from. And the idea is that any combination works, provided that it works for you and that we're being responsible about what you want to do in the future. The way we do it at MPW and the way I've always done it is quite simply from the outset to ask the question in terms of where you want to be and then track back from there. Okay, so more variety, and that covers arts and sciences and social sciences and humanities and the creative arts within there as well. So there's an enormous range of what it is that you might want to do. And it gives you quite a depth of education. In the English system, you only ever have to do 3 A-levels in order to get an offer at university. Some schools, including ourselves, we start with 4 and then we drop down to 3 at the end of the first year because it gives us longer to explore you, allow you to develop your skill set and allow us to build that breadth of knowledge. Other systems like IB, for example, get you to take more subjects and they just cover them across a wider range, okay? But whereas A-levels cover them in much more depth. So it's a strong background, and what A-levels essentially do, because I don't want to dumb the system down too much, particularly not when we're live streaming on the whole thing, but ultimately A-levels benefit you if you know how to pass them. It is still quite an archaic system that relies upon the examination system. So what it does as well, and what any good school will do, is teach you beyond the syllabus and teach you transferable skills that you can skill up to when you are at university themselves, i.e. when you are applying to university, you're not just applying based on the courses you're studying, you're also applying based on the skills that you have learned from A-level themselves. And technically, A-level should be more reflective of a student's broader interests. So you'll find out that foundation courses are a bit more vocational, A-levels are broader interests, and we will always encourage people to take them based upon enjoyment in that particular subject. And here are the subjects you can do that we were talking about before. Anything from accountancy all the way to theatre studies and more or less everything else in between. And there are still some that are not covered on this particular list, but are available to students. And those quite commonly are languages that don't fall under the modern foreign language bracket. People are allowed to take these by all means if they are a native language to you. Native languages can be very good, particularly if you are looking to get a particular grade for university, but be aware not all universities will take your native language as a grade. So we would always encourage a conversation on that in advance. But if it is something you feel particularly strong in, there are other options and further options for you. Within the A-level system as well, there is something called the EPQ, which is the Extended Project Qualification. And it's another really compelling reason as to why A-levels are a good thing. The EPQ is a standalone qualification that's done alongside A-levels. When the old AS system went out of fashion about 5 or 6 years ago now, the AS, as it were, the exam, no longer held any weight in the university application system. In came the EPQ, and the EPQ basically is worth half of an A-level itself, so it's worth 50%. And within this 50%, it also carries UCAS points. If you do particularly well in your EPQ, what it can do is actually bring down the grade offer that the university is requiring of you when you are applying to the university itself. So I put an example on here of Sheffield. You want to do economics at 2 A's and a B. A really good EPQ at an A star or an A range might bring it down to ABB or something around that particular level. In this case, even a B and an EPQ will do that for you. But what we love about the EPQ is it's based upon you and your interests, and you can answer it on anything that you possibly like. So it could be on the history of guitars for all it matters, or it could be something very scientific towards medical advances, okay? Maybe something specific towards the Ebola virus, something along those lines. It could be anything in between, but it's chosen based upon your own personal interest, okay? Whatever it is that you think you would like to answer on because you are the person researching it. Why is this important? Because what it does is it shows, it demonstrates to the university that you're not just someone who can get the grades, you are someone who is ready to be a student at university itself, because a lot of research skills are required at university. Now, this is definitely something that sets A-levels apart from foundation courses because we have the time to be able to do something like this, okay? It is a very valuable course. It teaches you skills that are also relevant towards your subjects themselves. Foundation courses are the real up-and-comers, and they can be strong in their own rights, but their own rights is possibly a little bit more limited in its scope. They're generally taken over the course of 1 year, some of them not even that, some of them 9 months, some of them 6 months within there. Always sounds more attractive to do a qualification in a shorter amount of time, but just be prepared to be ready for that particular timescale and knowing that you can get everything done in there themselves. I've known students go on to courses simply because it takes a shorter amount of time and not be able to cope and therefore we have to re-qualify what it is that they're doing as their qualification. Depending on the foundation course, it doesn't allow you access to the complete range of universities in the United Kingdom, but it allows you percentage of those, and quite a high percentage, generally about 85%, in some cases 90%. You should be very careful if you're ever looking to do a foundation course and trying to go on to something like Oxbridge or medicine or dentistry or veterinary, whereby this does not apply as a route for you. Okay, foundation courses are more specific, and students will specialize in certain subjects within there. You get some degree of choice within your modules, but generally speaking, you have those as a prescriptive list because it is pointing you in a general direction. Foundation courses as well tend to be more for the international market because they are there as well to develop the English language, but not only the English language skill, but the academic English language level, ready for students to cope on a 3 or 4 year discipline when you get to undergraduate level. They do cater for more specific vocational interests. Generally, people go onto these sorts of courses for business purposes. Business, economics, finance generally tends to be quite a popular foundation route. Engineering tends to be another one in there as well. So more vocational in their scope. The options. Now, look, if we come at this from the MPW point of view to start with, because obviously this is where I'm speaking to you from today, there are different routes that you have. We run the University of London International Foundation course. Now, that one is very specific towards a more business-focused future because it tends to look more at the economics side of things with more emphasis on mathematics, international relations in there as well. But it also will give you the option of looking at politics and law too. So a bit more finance related, but also a bit more social sciences. Then you have the NC UK as well. Now, the NC UK is fractionally different from what the University of London does. It requires, generally speaking, a slightly lower level of English because it gives you more focus on the English language level. And I should mention that the University of London programme, it's there at the top of the list because it doesn't give you any English language development as part of it. You are already expected to be at a high level. Whereas for the NC UK, you have a little bit more English language training as part of it. And there are different pathways that you can follow. So you can do a science pathway, an engineering pathway, a humanities pathway in there too, or a business pathway. So depending on what you want to do. The interesting thing, and we will look at this in more detail, but the interesting thing about the NC UK is it gives you guaranteed progression to one of the partner universities. And there's quite a number of partner universities with the NC UK, indeed within the Russell Group as well. So doing well on the foundation course automatically guarantees you entry onto one of those universities. And then we have the MPW University Foundation course, and that is specific to those who want to go into business. So that one's a slightly shorter one, done over the course of 6 months, and is a course specific to those wanting to go into business who are at the end of their studies on the A level. And then beyond that, so that's MPW, but beyond that, and we need to look at these, the university foundation programs, and there are lots. But you do need to just understand what that course is actually giving you, whether it is specific to what you want to do, whether it's giving you enough English language training, or whether it is simply a money spinner in order to get more people into the university itself. Now, that's a slightly naughty thing to say, but you do have to be aware of these things as we go through. Okay. So if we balance this out, generally speaking, A-levels are done over 2 years, and I'm always going to sit here and say to you, if you have 2 years, take A-levels because they'll get you to where you want to go. It's an absolute truth. But instead of this, because we are looking at A-levels versus foundations, what we also want to do in the whole thing is make this a slightly fairer fight. So we'll look at 1 year A-levels versus foundation courses because it is the same time scale. Students generally considering foundation courses will also consider 1 year A-levels. And our job, or specifically my job, is usually to work out which one would be better for the students in there, okay? The students who cope well on 1 year A-level courses are the people who, one, appreciate what you have to do, which is combining 2 years in one. Sounds like a tall order. It is perfectly manageable, but you are just running from the moment that you start. It requires a lot greater research-based skills and a much greater depth of knowledge versus the foundation course, which, without downplaying it, still requires a very focused, very ambitious sort of person, but not the same level of research ability behind it. Okay. Why would you therefore take 1 year A-levels over foundation? Because you've got a greater choice and a greater depth of knowledge, and universities feel much more confident generally in offering out places to those with a greater depth of knowledge than those who have just done sufficient in order to get onto the course. That sounds obvious because it is. Be careful what you wish for with university foundation courses. They can be fantastic. They really can, but there is a big difference, and I'm going to qualify it as F1 versus FY1. So a foundation course as a standalone course is not the same as someone doing a 4-year course which has foundation integrated into it. Okay, so an F1 course, you will need to, it won't directly take you onto your course at university. You'll still need to pass it to a high percentage in order to get an offer of a place, and you'll have to apply for university in that year. If you apply for a university degree and you have a foundation course built into it, so the FY1 within there, then generally speaking, you have a natural progression through that particular 4-year course. But universities approach foundation courses much like they do full-time courses, which generally puts more emphasis onto you as an individual. And the purpose of taking a foundation course is that you are not ready quite yet to be an undergraduate student. Therefore, to place more emphasis onto you as an individual to get through the foundation course, for many people can be hard. It's a very self-selecting route, and you need to be honest with yourselves as to who you are as a student and to whether that plays to your strength or isn't quite in your wheelhouse at that moment in time. So therefore, we balance it against college-based foundation courses, which approach it more like a school does. And it gives you more individualized focus and greater teaching hours, which means there's more support available. And quite honestly, the majority of students, internationally speaking, find greater benefit in taking a college-based foundation course because you get more support, including UCAS, so university entrance support, as part of what you are doing. Okay, so less about you, more about the school, and indeed the support mechanism behind it. Looking at the basics of all of these is quite honestly should be your starting place. You should be looking at the length of the course, the cost of the course. The cost is really important because your financials will dictate and determine a lot of what it is that you do. Bear in mind, you can get grants and things for university-based courses, but colleges don't generally tend to do grants for foundation courses, although bursaries will always be available depending on the school. The curriculum, so look in detail at that. Are you interested in it? Does it play to your strengths? Could it be what you want it to be in order to take you forward? Will it give you enough in order to qualify for the university you're looking to go on to? The location of it, where is it? Is it attached to the university if it's a university foundation course, or is it run in a different campus entirely because it's not actually part of the university itself? And these are important considerations that people miss. The assessment modules towards it in terms of how is this actually assessed? Is it on one exam at the end of the year? Is it continuous assessment? What works for you within there? How is it recognized? Should almost be number one for you, because there's no point in taking a foundation course if it doesn't get you to where you want to go. Good example for you, the University of London foundation course technically is there for the entirety of the University of London. But if you were to take it, it doesn't give you entry to somewhere like UCL, for example, which is where a lot of people want to go when taking that foundation course. So really look in detail as to where that foundation course will qualify you for before you move forward. And then the language, how much extra support is going to be given to you on an English language basis? Do you need more? Do you need less? What works for you in the grand scheme of things? Balancing pros and cons within all of this. So pros of A-levels, we know them, we operate with them. We've known them for a very long period of time, and it is the gold standard in the UK. All colleges, all schools should be offering A-levels, some offering IB, but the majority doing A-levels out there. And you can join A-levels from the age of 15, 16 and take them for 2 years, which is the general encouragement if you want to study at university in the UK. Okay, you can take them over 1 year. Just be aware that by implication, you're doing everything in half the time at twice the speed. They are self-selecting, but they can be done. And all universities will accept them. So you've got the Oxbridge route in there. You've got the medical route, the dentistry route, the veterinary route. And for these sorts of universities, It's a question of how it looks in appearance term for them as well. They are always going to have more confidence in the grades that you are predicted and that you're going to achieve them if you've taken your time to do those. Partly as well for medicine, and in some ways engineering in this as well, because of the work experience aspect. If you take your time, people also believe that you've got time to both do the work experience and the study alongside each other, which is quite an obvious point and quite a true point in there too. They do have their drawbacks as well, okay? You have to take things in certain combinations, that is true. If you want to do something like economics at university, you'll never be allowed to take business as part of the program for the top universities. You've got to be aware that there is a little bias that exists in some of these combinations. And if you've got something very specific, it's worthwhile talking to a school or a college in advance in order to discuss this program of study. So there are slight quirks. Again, something like medicine, you have to take biology and chemistry. You don't actually have to take maths. That's a misnomer nowadays. You can take something else in there as well, but the biology and the chemistry is exceptionally important. The failure rate, if we can put it that way, but the failure rate for A-levels is higher as well than it would be on the foundation courses. Although the difference isn't that great, fractionally, it is a little more in favour of the foundation courses over A-levels there. And you don't have any chance of guaranteed progression from the A-level system, really, because you have to get your grades and all of your offers are based upon conditionality. Okay, the condition that if you get these grades, then you'll be able to pass straight on through. 1 year A-levels and foundation courses, they're not the same, but they do give you a very high chance of progressing onto university. Again, let's just take our stats for a moment, but generally speaking, about 84–85% of students, and this was last year, but it's a general trend, will progress onto what we call Russell Group universities in the UK. If you've got any questions as to what the Russell Group is, please feel free to ask me straight afterwards. But generally speaking, A-levels allow you entry moving forward. Foundation courses are very good, and in no way are we being dismissive of them. They are there predominantly, really, for overseas students as a slightly more beneficial way of getting to university than 1 year A-levels are, which can be a little bit too arduous or too taxing in some respects because of the English language and because of the study skills that are there, okay? You can join a foundation course with a lower level of English depending on what that foundation course actually is. And we refer to the failure rate of A-level, it's lower on the foundation course too. So you have in some ways, a greater chance of going onto a more vocational route at university. And you're getting to specialize simply in the area that you're interested in, business, engineering, something along those particular lines. And you're getting to look towards that. Quite recently, and I did a talk for Nigeria recently as well. And there was a lot of people that came out of that wanted to know about nursing. And nursing has a very good foundation-based course that goes into it as well through the NC UK. So depending on what you want to do, foundation courses really can fulfill a niche there. But there is less choice that you have on foundation, both for subjects and for the type of college that are doing it. Qualifications are not always accepted by universities, so do check that out in advance, okay? And because foundation courses, they're not always nationally or at least internationally recognized, there is a variation on the standard of the courses. So do be careful when choosing. Do look at inspection reports, do look at progression reports and things like that. Don't simply take it because you hear the word foundation and think it will be a leader on. Sometimes, because yes, the failure rate is low, but you still have to hit a lot higher marks in order to get onto some of the really top university courses within the United Kingdom. You can always get onto a university course, but to get into that elite group at the very top, you really do need to be pushing very high percentages off the foundation courses, which drags you back to taking A-levels in the first place. You do have good progression rates that go onto it. Generally speaking, about 60% of people that will enter onto something like the University of London course will achieve distinctions or merits. And as you can see below, that gives you a good range of strong universities to go onto. We talked about the partner universities of something like the NC UK as well. Here are some of them on this particular screen, just to pick some out for you. University of Bristol, Queen Mary's, Manchester, Birmingham, these are all Exeter. They are Russell Group universities within there. And beyond the Russell Group universities, there are still some very good, very strong universities that will allow you to go and do more vocational courses there too. There is a foundation course for medicine. It doesn't therefore allow you entry into medical schools in the UK. You'd have to fulfill an English-based medical school overseas, but it does give you a medical UK guarantee qualifying degree at the end of it. So there's so many opportunities still, even if A-levels were not the right route for you. And they do give people quite a high degree of success as well within that. Okay. And if you're getting marks like those, generally speaking, on you go to all the different universities. The great thing about the NC UK as well is that it's constantly bringing more partner universities on stream too. So always keep aware of this idea of guaranteed progression and where it is that you can go. So when deciding which is the difference between the two, I've always looked at it as ambition versus age. And the answer will depend on your academic achievements to date, in terms of how strong a candidate you are, your language skills and your ambitions. So depending on the course you want to do, which route will be better will be determined by whether that particular course will take a foundation course in the first place. So no to medicine and veterinary and dentistry, really, in the grand scheme of things, no to the Oxbridge-based route, and then you put you onto A-levels. But if you're looking at something financial and your academics are strong enough, or at least roughly strong enough in advance, then maybe the foundation course throws its hand up a little bit higher. The higher your ambitions, just in blunt terms and not being dismissive, but the higher your ambitions, always look towards the A-level route. 1 year is a possibility, although I will always try and veer you onto a 2-year course if you have the time and resources to do it, not from a financial point of view, but more from the depth of knowledge and discussion and the ability to get work experience and the other things that set a student apart. When you're looking to go to a high top-tier university, you'll get more of those opportunities the longer you take, as a simple point. Foundation courses, they are widely accepted. They will provide you with a good education. It is a good choice, particularly if you're older. If you're an older student, don't look at the A-level system per se, look at the foundation course, because that then is more applicable to you. And that's the age point in this argument as well. If you're younger, take A-levels. If you're older, take foundation courses by simple implication of age. Why choose colleges for either? Because you get more time, you get more focus, you get more attention towards you. I really don't want to look like I'm just pushing colleges here versus university foundation courses, but from a simple point of view, you get smaller groups, more individualized attention, a renowned sort of university assistance in placement, and you just get more opportunity to develop with somebody as opposed to doing it on your own. For those students who absolutely want the quality of university education from the word go, then look at the university foundation courses as well, provided that they are being run on campus and you don't arrive and have a slightly surprising experience of finding out that you're having to do this 40 miles down the road or something like that, which won't quite give you the opportunity you're looking at. So look at what you want from the outset, do your research, and then once you've done that, you can make that educated decision based from there. So I've always liked to work this as a bit of an example at the very end here. It's called play your cards right. As an interviewer, I always start with the end goal. I look at the end goal, find out what the ambition of the student is, and then track back from there to find out the most appropriate route. We are considering the age of the student in there as well, for the reasons I just explained, where you've come from and what your academic background is, i.e. most of you exist from a very strong educational system, but does it have the skill set that our university system requires you to have before you start? Yes or no? And then which one's going to give you the better chance at advancing that skill set? So we look at your academic background, what your marks are to date in there too. The higher the mark, the more likely you are to go onto the A-level route. The lower the mark, the more onto the foundation route. What makes you unique is always a point that I want to find out in there as well, because when we are getting you towards university, you are telling stories, and that story is you. You are the commodity. You are the story that we're looking to sell in order to get you into university. So what makes you unique in there as well? And very much assessing the English language level and checking that in the grand scheme of things, it is the right route for you too, okay? So that being what I look for, we're then going to look at the rules of the game. Now the rules, here you are, 1 to 8. Age, where you've come from, academic history, previous education, what else is important to you, your English language level, unique, and what you want to do in the future. Those are what you have to look out for. The scoring system that we use is on the left here. So 1 to 4 will make roughly for a weak student, 5 to 6 an average, 7 to 8 a good, and 8 to 10 will be an exceptional candidate. We also consider the extracurricular in here by the same grading system. 1 to 4, it's not important to the student. 5 to 6, it's reasonably important to the student. 7 to 8, it's important to the student. And 8 to 10. Extracurricular is an important point in all of this too, because when you're selecting to come over for A-level versus foundation, what do you want your experience to be like? And I really do trade off the idea that university and schools and A-levels and foundations, they should be about the experience and not just the learning, because learning is only half defined in the classroom. It's about what else we do outside it. And it could be sport, which gives you more social interaction, or it could be cross-curricular activities like trips or what have you that give you more advancement in a different subject as well. Because the greatest people will always be the ones who can cross-connect between their courses. Syllabuses, both A-level and foundation, are narrow. They only have so much scope at the end of the day, no matter how much depth they go into. So how can we broaden you out as a student, and how interested are you? Always, it will be the case that you get more of that from the college-based route, where you're in more of a school-based environment, versus a foundation route where your timing isn't quite as generous towards you doing some of these other things. Just before doing the actual exercise itself, here's your comparison chart. Take a screenshot, do something. I've given you the comparison of the A-levels versus the foundation on the right-hand side there in terms of the length of the course, the start dates, the IELTS level that you need to have reached, fees, because fees are enormously a decisive factor in choosing things for a lot of people, and rightly so. How many hours are dedicated towards it, the size of the groups and things like that, and always the progression routes that are in there too. So if you take a screenshot, because it will make sense now, I'm going to show you 5 different candidates within this. Based upon the scoring chart we had before, take a screenshot, and then also upon the comparison chart that we have here. And what I'm asking you to do, if you've taken the screenshots right now, is I'm asking you to basically put yourself in my position as an interviewer. Because if you can do that and you can start understanding what sort of student would be right for a certain type of course, we start understanding a little bit more of the argument between A-levels and foundation courses. So, bearing all this in mind, where would we put Keita in the whole thing? She is 17. She is Japanese. She has an academic history score of 6 out of 10. She's been in Japan up until this point, previously studying. Her extracurricular interests only rate 3 out of 10, so it's not that important to her. She's currently operating at an English language level of 5.5. She's hardworking, she's shy, she's focused, and her end ambition is ultimately to go into biomedical sciences. So, ladies and gentlemen, in your chat, what exactly do you think she would go for as a route? Where would we place her? A-levels, foundation course, and if it's foundation course, which foundation course would it be? And just to Mimi, I will answer your question very shortly, Mimi, once we've done the exercise here. So, Keita, what would we do with Keita? A-level or foundation course? Any answers in the chat box? I've got an advancement for A-levels here. Jolly good. Can I ask why you put her onto A-levels? If you feel strong enough to tell me, why would you put her onto A-levels? It's an interesting argument, actually, the A-levels versus foundation for someone like Keita within the whole thing. With an academic history of about 6 out of 10, it puts her as a roughly okay student, so not that strong. She wants biomedical and would like studying. Yes, indeed. I mean, that's why it's a grey area. Where she wants to go, genuinely would try and put her into the A-level bracket. I will just say that the NCUK offers a scientific pathway that would work for her. She's only an average student at the end of the day, as opposed to a strong one. And because extracurricular is not that important for her, generally a foundation course may actually be a better route. 5.5 puts her squarely in the foundation course bracket. It's not quite strong enough for A levels. So I think she would struggle on 1 year A levels themselves. So we have to consider that part. She's only 17, so she has time on her side. And I do just generally think that A levels generally try and drag more conversation out of people and promote confidence, whereas foundation courses, you don't need to be quite as vocal. So I think in the grand scheme of things, we could probably put her onto foundation course over A levels there personally. But thank you for that particular volunteering of that answer there to you, Paul. Luke, what have we got for Luke, do we think then? So Luke, he's 16, he's British, he's an 8 out of 10. I hate the scoring system, but we have to work it just as an exercise here. So he's an 8 out of 10 on academic. His previous school's been in the United Kingdom, so he's at Millfield, which is a very good school. Extracurricular 7 out of 10, which is not surprising for Millfield. He's a native English speaker. He's driven, outgoing, and he wants to go into medicine. Generally speaking, what would we put him onto? A level indeed, Mimi. It's completely right. There's no other answer to it. Medicine should have been the immediate flag to anyone anyway. He's strong enough to go onto A levels, and he's strong enough to go. He's only 16 though, so we wouldn't put him onto 1 year A levels. He's a 2 year A level candidate within this. Just a couple more. Olga, Russian. She's 8 out of 10 as well. She's previously been in Russia. Extracurriculars 2 out of 10. IELTS is 7.0. She's flying away. She's polite, she's independent, she's analytical, she wants to go into finance. What would we suggest for someone like Olga in this? Both, absolutely both. She could do either. It's entirely up to her on this one. Academically, she's strong. English language is strong. For my money, I would say probably still the A-level route, but something like the University of London Foundation, which has a bias, I suppose, or a slant rather than a bias, towards a financial-based degree at university would be a good option, but it does depend. If she'd said UCL, then A-levels are the right route, but if she said the LSE, both routes are perfectly possible to her, okay? Just on the LSE side of things, you can take a foundation course and get to the LSE, and it's a common question, but your score, your percentage score needs to be phenomenally high, or at least extremely high, in order to go on and do that, okay? Nearly there. So Chen, 17-year-old Chen, Chinese academic history of 4 out of 10, extracurricular 3, he's a bit laid back, he lacks academic independence, and he wants to do business management. What would you do with Chen? Foundation. You know what? It probably is foundation. But the only thing is we never advise Chen to go down a university foundation route because he lacks academic independence and he's quite laid back. So he's not going to be part of that self-selecting group. His academics are not strong. And even on a foundation course, he will struggle. So the starting place for someone like Chen is a 2 year A-level course where we can build his academics. If he really doesn't want to do that, then foundation course is the right route. But he will still struggle a little bit on that. So 2 year A levels versus a foundation course, something like the NCUK or the MPW university course would be good. The last thing you would ever do is put him onto a 1 year A level course because he will not cope on something like that, and not to a university course either. And then the last one for you here is young Alice, a 17-year-old Brazilian student with a great academic history as well. She's been studying both in the UK and in Brazil. So she was in the UK until year 9, but then she moved back to Brazil. Extracurricular is quite strong. She's fluent in English. She's adaptable and analytical, and she wants to go into international relations. Anyone have a view on Alice? So she's got a slightly different background in the fact that she was in the UK, then she went to the Brazilian system, now wants to come back. She is good at English. She is strong academically. What would you do with someone like Alice? Again, yeah, both. She has the foundation route. She has the 1 year A-level route available. Just always bear in mind the course she wants to do. And it comes back to this argument for anyone where if you've got a specific route already, if you've got a vocation in mind, sometimes foundation courses can fulfill a really neat niche for you. And there is an international relations route that goes through foundation courses. So she might find that actually just going on to a foundation course would be the right route for her, because she has a very specific goal in mind and she's more than capable of achieving it. If she was to do A-levels, just out of curiosity, which A-levels do you think she would need to do in order to be an international relations student? Politics, history, those tend to be the right courses. There you go, absolutely. History and politics tend to be the international relations route. And the importance of being able to speak a different language cannot be stressed high enough. Now, for her, obviously, she can speak Brazilian and she can speak English. That is a really strong thing. But what else can you offer the university within there? It's a very sad truth that the majority of English students cannot speak languages beyond GCSE, and a lot of people drop it before GCSE level. So universities in the UK are far more interested if you can actually offer them a language in there too, coming out of the A-level system. So as you can see with a lot of these things, the choice between A-level and foundation is very personal. Often it can be both, and sometimes it is far clearer than others. If you've ever got the option, I would always encourage the option to go down the A-level route rather than the foundation route because of the depth of it. But then if someone is strong enough, it becomes their choice. For other people, the choice isn't there. If they're not strong academically, you'd never put them onto 1 year A-levels. You'd always put them on foundation or 2 year A-levels. The latter, so the 2 year A-levels being preferable. But if financially that doesn't work, then a foundation course in a college system as opposed to a university system would be more applicable. For someone like Alice, she's capable of doing a university foundation, she's capable of doing a college foundation, and she's capable of 1 year A-levels. It will be determined by which university she wants to go to at the end of the day. So there we go. In summary, look at who the student is, then guide them to where they want to go. Start at the end. Once you know you and where you want to go, look at what the right option is for you and talk to counsellors, talk to schools, talk to me. Let yourself be guided as to what might be the option. One size in education should never fit all. But that's the great thing about education, is that you have so much variety, so many different options. Both do the right thing. If you think of the examples at the start and those silly little examples we use, both do the right thing, but for different students. And it's okay to be different in there. A-level versus foundation, therefore, should always be termed far better. A-levels and foundation courses. Don't try and trade them off a bit against each other. Just look at what the right option is for you based on the criteria that we've actually looked at there. So look, that's a summary. That's a summary of A-levels versus foundation. There's only so large a topic you can make out of this. It's far better from here actually then to answer any questions that people have. And if I immediately go back up the message chat to start with Mimi's question, and then if anyone else has any questions they want to throw in from here too. Mimi, can we have an A-level and decide to do a foundation course to improve English as an international student? Yes, you can. If you've done A-levels first, you have the option of doing the foundation course after, just to improve on the English. If it's just to improve on the English, there are different ways of looking at this, whether it's just an English language course, whether you want to do something specific towards the subject itself. Always consider as well whether you have what the university already requires you to have to get to university, because English language support can be available at university simply for your academic English, if that is the case. Generally speaking, most people who go into foundation courses, certainly that I've seen, will have done something first. A-levels is a perfectly natural route first, but if your English isn't strong enough, foundation does fulfill that bracket. Be careful about the foundation route you go onto, because this is, again, what we're saying. Does it provide you with an English language level of support, or is it simply that you just want to keep working at that particular subject? Then a question from, where else have we got within here? So, Ravina, you're not asking a question there. What do we have? So you have BSc, Timideo, in chemistry from a Nigerian university and a PhD in international health management. Wow, very good indeed. You're looking to study nursing. Please advise what the best way to go into this and achieving this is. Quite simply, we might want an offline conversation on this particular one. There is the foundation route, of course, available of doing a 1-year nursing foundation first, although I would suggest a straight application might be perfectly permissible for you, considering your background, considering the number of qualifications you have. It's a question of how valuable and experienced doing a foundation course, or how useful it would be for you to start with, or whether you have something enough in there to begin with. I would suggest, and it's only gut feeling on this, but you might be permissible to go straight as an application. But let's have an offline conversation if you would like, and I should be able to answer that one in a bit more detail for you there. But other than that, what other questions do we have? So, Ravina, do we have any questions that you might want me to answer?
There's nothing on YouTube at the moment, but yeah, I just want to say to the students that we're live for another few minutes. So if you've got any questions, yeah, do feel free to post them now. But in the meantime, if there's a main takeaway, James, that you want students to kind of have from this presentation, what would that potentially be?
Yeah, the main takeaway will always be think of yourself and not other people within the whole thing. Think of what is absolutely right to you as opposed to what generally most people do. Think of what you think you can achieve within a year's time scale, okay? Whether you think you have it with, sorry, I beg your pardon? Oh, maybe that was just the microphones crossing. But generally speaking, think of who you are and what you can achieve within that time. Beyond that, have conversations and do your research properly as to what might work for you itself. Both work is probably the biggest message in all of this, but you are the only person, the only advocate of the person who can actually choose it. But base it on what's realistic for you. Don't always try and run before you can walk. Foundation courses can be very good, but A-levels will always give you a greater option.
There is one question on YouTube about students being able to work during their foundation degree.
Look, yes, you'll have some time to work, but depending on the foundation course, some of them, like the University of London course, for example, carries 30 hours worth of teaching within that. So it's a question of how much time you're still going to have available to work on that. If it's something that's relevant to your course and that you need to have it, again, we suggest you back onto the A-level route because you'd have more time available to you to actually study on that. Other foundation courses carry no hours at all, or very few hours, and therefore you will have time to work alongside it. But bear in mind that the emphasis has gone on to you to study your foundation course, and therefore don't let work overtake the foundation course itself. I think the answer to that is simply yes, but it's about balance. Don't take too much work on. I know a lot of people try and work in order to finance the course too, which is a very noble, very good thing to do, but those people often burn out as well. So in some cases, you might actually recommend a small amount of work, or if it's the requirement, you might want to do the work before you actually embark on the particular course. If it's anything like, instead of work, it's work experience. Work experience pushes you entirely back onto the A-level route where you have the time available and built into your timetable. Question on scholarships available. Yes, look, scholarships generally tend to be more available on 3-year undergraduate courses and A-levels. Foundation courses don't generally tend to have scholarships, although college-based college-based foundation courses can offer you certain scholarships from the outset, somewhere varying between about 10 and 25% based upon the student, your academic history to date and that sort of thing. So colleges generally tend to award scholarships. Universities don't generally tend to award scholarships to foundation course students. They tend to be there more for the undergraduate students itself. And then to flip the argument again, if you're on the A-level side of things, there are scholarships, competitive scholarships available to go onto an A-level route and generally can often be at a higher level than foundation. Why is that the case? Because generally, if you take a foundation-based course, it is your decision to do so. Often, because it's not always necessary to do a foundation course, for example, people don't generally tend to award money out to them. And if you're being really cynical, sometimes foundation courses can be a financial vehicle for certain institutions anyway. So scholarships aren't always readily available there for that.
There's a question about being able to choose the tutor during a foundation program. Is that a possibility?
As in the teacher, or like a personal tutor? Look, I mean,
I'm not entirely sure, but I think they might mean a personal tutor.
Yes. So look, personal tutors are generally there for. They're there in name. If you go into a university one, they are there as a daily or a weekly confidant if you are doing a college-based foundation course. Usually if it were me, I was trying to match up the student from the outset with a personal tutor that I think that you'd be able to get on with, that would benefit your skill set, be able to advance you in their own way, that sort of thing. If it weren't the right person, then of course we'd be able to move people across to someone else. We'd have a conversation. The idea is to get people to help you, not just to be stuck to a system itself. So yes, you have a voice within the whole thing, but it's not a choice from the outset per se. We still try and match you up as appropriate within that. But as I suppose a secondary backup point to that, we should all be inspired by the people who teach us and by the people who mentor us. So we, as anyone should be, will always be prepared to get something wrong to start with in order to get it right afterwards. But you need a voice. And the only way you're going to get through A-levels or foundation courses, and particularly university, is to remember that you have a voice and to speak up if ultimately you feel something would benefit you more. Anything else at all? Do you support students with quarantine fees? The advice for that, the £1,750 hotel quarantine. Look, the rules are constantly in flux at this moment in time. So the question on that very much goes down to, let's see what it is by the time that you actually come over. I can't answer for institution to institution, but certainly on the MPW side of things, we support people through quarantine. Of course, we have our own accommodation, our own student accommodation for students coming across to study in there. As far as the hotel quarantine versus the student accommodation side of things go, it'll be a question that we need to answer when looking at the situation at the time of you actually coming across. Generally speaking, no, we're not paying for the £1,750 hotel quarantine period. What we're doing instead is getting you into student accommodation where you are fully supported, and we're not charging overhead premiums in these sorts of things. What we're looking to do is to get you into study as quickly as possible. And as soon as you're with us over here quarantined as much as anything else, or even before you come over because you haven't been allowed yet, you can study online. And if this is a way of mitigating it, so you don't ever fall into this hotel quarantine period and waiting to come off a red list onto an amber list or a green list or whatever, we do also live stream the classes, and there'll be a hybrid model still in effect for at least the next 6 months, whereby students who aren't able to come over will still be able to join the courses. Even though we'd love you to be here in person, you can still follow it live as well. There's ways, there's means around it. Again, always an offline conversation is a good one.
Brilliant. I think that's all the time we've got for questions today. But yeah, thank you so much for the session once again, James. I don't know if you want to say anything, or if Jason, I know your colleague is here as well, if you want to say any final things before we...
Well, look, I'll just say this, which is, look, good luck to everyone. I hope whichever route you choose is the right route for you. We are always here. We're always here to help. But if you do want any advice, just indeed let us know. But thank you for joining us today. By mere virtue of the fact that you have joined us today, it means you're already quite a self-selecting candidate as it is. And therefore, you can afford to make this choice based upon what you want, because you're clearly researching into it properly. So look, stay safe, stay well. If ever anyone wants a conversation, do get in touch.
Brilliant. Thank you. In that case, I'm just going to end this meeting now. All right.
Lovely. All the very best.